Hello, my name is Justin Scott, and I'm making this video to talk about some tips for putting on effective presentations. A little about myself: I graduated from Rutgers in the spring of 2016 with a biomedical engineering degree and a specialization in biomechanics. I am now a PhD student at Michigan State University in the mechanical engineering department. Let's get right to it. Making presentations is something you will have to do as a scientist in order to disseminate your findings to people both within your field and outside. Being able to effectively communicate your ideas not only makes you look good, but it allows others to use the knowledge you've uncovered to further their own projects as well. This brings me to my first point, and it's one you have undoubtedly will have heard from basically every person giving you advice on presentations. But that really is because it is so important. That point is to know your audience. While you will decide to specialize in one area of engineering going forward, not everyone is going to have the breadth of knowledge you do about your own project. Especially if you're working on an interdisciplinary project and presenting to people from different fields, everyone's knowledge base is going to be a little bit different. As a biomechanist, my research itself is inherently interdisciplinary, so when I'm presenting about the effects of mechanical stress on someone's tissue beneath their buttocks, the background knowledge I present will have to change depending on with whom I'm talking. I may lose a person with a medical background if I don't explain the concept of mechanical stress, but on the other hand, I may have to explain the anatomy of the muscles beneath the buttocks to a mechanical engineer, or they might not know where muscles like the piriformis are. A good way to check if your background information is sufficient is simply to try to explain your project to a friend in the same field to which you are presenting, while you're creating the presentation itself. If you lose them, it is likely that you may lose others in the same field as well. The second thing I'd like to stress is the importance of flow on any presentation that you give. Any presentation, whether it be a poster or a speech, should really feel like a story. This will keep the audience engaged in what you have to say, and although it may feel like the bane of existence for many scientists to try to add in anything seen as fluff into a presentation, in many cases, keeping the words to a minimum may rob your message of its importance. It is a difference between me saying either of the following two passages. The first is that normal and shear pressures diminish blood flow in loaded areas. The lack of blood flow leads to malnourishment of tissue and tissue necrosis. The second passage would be, the normal and shear pressures felt by a person affect blood flow. This is because blood vessels are essentially tubes, and you can imagine that applying a pressure on them is essentially squishing that tube, not allowing fluid to flow through it anymore. This is what happens in the body when you sit down, except the blood flowing through those vessels is carrying nutrients, so when those tubes get squished, all the tissue relying on that vessel is at risk of dying. The first and second passages communicate the same message, but more people would probably understand the significance of my research problem after having heard the second option. Tied into this is the energy that you bring to the presentation itself. I cannot overstate how important it is to bring energy to absolutely any presentation that you give. If you don't appear to care about your project, then why would your audience? Even if you're telling an amazing and important story, keeping the audience engaged is always on the storyteller. Think about the difference between having Ben Carson tell a story and hearing one from Samuel L. Jackson. You can compare the two, but is it really fair to do that? And everyone knows who's going to be more engaging. What I've talked about so far covers the information contained in your poster or your presentation and the demeanor with which you present it. I'd like to touch on one more thing that may seem dull, but it has a huge impact on how your presentation goes. The visuals on your poster or presentation have to be on point, down to every single detail. The first thing that draws people into a slide or a poster are the figures. So things like the fact that fonts have to match. They have to be big enough to read easily for figures like bar graphs or line graphs. You want to use contrasting colors because they'll always make your presentation pop. You have to keep in mind that red-green color blindness is a thing. So those two might not be the best choice of color, but you need to make use of all the others. And if you put a figure or a slide on your poster, you must explain it in your own words. Instead of leaving that job to the captions, this is the time to show out and make sure your audience knows exactly what your methods were, what your results are, or whatever you happen to put in that figure is. The most memorable part of any presentation tends to be the visuals, whether we like it or not, so they need to be done well. If you're giving a presentation with a video, the same rules apply. Videos can be powerful tools when explained and formatted well, but nothing takes the momentum out of a presentation more than a broken video. Keeping visuals clean and concise sets up the entire presentation well. The last note is to work on memorizing the first minute or two of whatever you're talking about. If you're giving a PowerPoint presentation, this means the first 4 or 5 slides. In a poster, you should make sure that your background and method sections are the same every single time that you say them. Everyone gets a little nervous before making a presentation, so memorizing these will give you time to get into a comfortable pace and settle into a good presentation. Making and giving presentations is a skill just like anything else, so it'll take time and practice, but it is the time to show off all the hard work you've put in your project. If you have any questions for me, Dean and Antoine can put you in contact with me. I hope I was helpful and didn't lose too many people's heads to their desks. Good luck going forward, and I'm excited to see what the Honors College and the Honors Academy produce.